Hey everybody, it's your pal Drew. I'm back and I'm going to follow up on why I did the Silver Age Doctor Strange comic fail with the slow, gradual climb to the top to Doctor Strange regaining his own magazine over a period of years, over a handful of creators, and hit pay dirt eventually. So this Mucha cover here, it's an Alphonse Mucha style cover. It's just beautiful. And Frank Bruner. Thing I hate though is, I've said this before, color holds. Because when this is designed, that should be black, that would be black too, and you would color in the lines. And I understand that's the way to color these days, but when you do that, you are taking the design element out of the page. It's like this has been shunted away, so you're stuck with this like weird chopped off area to the eye. But I'm a pen and ink guy, so that's sort of where I am. So this is the last issue of Doctor Strange. It only lasted, gosh, I don't know what, like half a year, maybe a little more. I could be wrong. Maybe a year. But it came out when all the Marvel Split books decided to take each feature and give them their own books. So now you had twice as many comics. Tales to Astonish, Tales of Suspense, and Strange Tales went from having 3 books, and then they got 3 more when they divvied up the characters. So Doctor Strange, he didn't really start off that strong. He's kind of a hard sell back then, because most of Marvel's characters were known for like fisticuffs, beating the tar out of each other, and he was, magicians at the time were kind of a hard sell. I mean, like even like you didn't have Zatanna at DC, get her own book. She'd get features, and she became like a fan favorite, but she's never been one to have like a book that lasted like several years. So it was a hard sell. It was a last gap measure. There was this idea to disguise Doctor Strange, because he was getting recognized as both Doctor Strange, who is the mage, and the one who walks down the street. He became too public, so this was created to kind of make him, pop out. Basically, look more like a superhero too. And he had saved eternity, and the embodiment of eternity. And what happened was, he is now Stephen Sanders. Everything. There was a, what is it? It was a telegram, and it was made out to Stephen Strange, and it went to Stephen Sanders. So that's his secret identity. His eternity's doing. He knew that I needed a new identity, and gave me one, a clean slate on which I may write what I will. So, this was fine. It was a standalone story here, but next time you see him, he's in Submariner. Roy Thomas has been working on keeping Doctor Strange in the limelight, where he can. And he shows up in this issue of Hulk too towards the end. Now these 3 issues they're the build up to the Defenders. I'm going to be covering them in another episode. There's a lot of bleed over here, but there are separate. What can you call it? I'm going to be revisiting this, but it's like different themes. That's the word. Well, after this issue, third crossover, for some reason, Roy decided to retire Doctor Strange for a while as a actual, as an actual sorcerer. And he goes, let me see. Still, there comes a time to put things, the trapping of a former life, and walk among men as a man, and the undying ones locked out of the cosmos for many lifetimes. Perhaps Doctor Strange is no longer needed. Perhaps the world is ready for plain, ordinary Stephen Strange again, a former surgeon who can still be useful as a medical consultant. So he just up and quits, and it's really odd. It's like a tacked on last minute thing, because I think because there was going to be some dead air between he didn't have his own home, he didn't have his own book anymore. So now that book, that Hulk book was dated April 1970, and this Marvel feature is a year and a half later. It's December of 1971. So there was some real downtime, and the main Defender stories already collected in a Defenders Collected Edition. This is the backup where it tells you how he came back. And love Don Heck, and I love Frank Giacoia on him. It's so great. They did some Avengers early on that really worked. Wong doesn't recognize Stephen Strange. This other guy shows up who's in the costumed version. And a lot of stuff going on. And what happens is it's Baron Mordo. I don't know how to abridge this whole story, but all you know is that he's back, and once more picked up the mantle of Doctor Strange. So now, in July of 72, which is about 8 months later, Marvel Premiere number 3, the first two had different, I think it had Adam Warlock or something. No. Forget it. Doesn't matter. With Marvel Premiere 3 has him, in his own book front and center, although it's not his own book yet. Barry Smith and Stan Lee, before Barry Smith was Barry Windsor Smith. I used to go Windsor all the time, but I don't know. I don't. It sounds disrespectful now, but I love this so much. And Dan Adkins is inking it, and it's perfect because Windsor Smith he's still in transition as far as his art looking like fan art to looking like professional art, and his each month he is on Conan. He really it's like he grew by leaps and bounds. And there's the Ancient One. And I love this. He's trapped. There's a time to cast spells and a time for muscle and sinew as well. By the shades of the shadowy demons, Doctor Strange will not be trapped. That's beautiful stuff. I think a lot of this is the Marvel way, I think it really has a lot of Barry Windsor Smith type sensibilities. I think Stan more or less just scripted it and maybe tweaked it a little bit, maybe the pacing and such. That's a spectacular 4-panel transition. Love that stuff. And there's no ground, there's no earth. So his ectoplasmic form has to go back into his physical form. It's some real freaky shit going on. So now we go into the what do you call it? There should be like a magic 8-ball for creators in the Bronze Age, and you just shake it and see who's going to be next. This is now R.J. Goodwin is filling in as the writer. Barry Smith, Frank Bruner, future superstars inking, and I just love it. It's just so neat to see these twin talents just build and emerge and be downright freaky. Okay, this one here, take a look. This one here is Frank Bruner and Sal Buscema, and Gardner Fox is the writer, the early Silver Age DC writer, and he did a lot of Lovecraft type ideas in these stories. There's a previous issue that I already showed on my Comics for My Spinner Rack episode, my other channel. It's Random Comics for My Spinner Rack. So it's just, things are going okay so far. Things are picking up. But Garner Fox is going more into that. I think that's Mike Plug. Yeah, Mike Plug. There you go. Great hand there. Now we go to another new guy in the block, Craig Russell, P. Craig Russell, who ended up doing tons of like graphic novels and one-shots based on all the great operas. Esposito, Giacoya, and Dave Hunt, they're all throwing their hands in there trying. This book always seems to be late, and I'm noticing some of the issues are bi-monthly, and it's, like I said, this is a real gradual build. Now, this was a nice surprise, and Gardner Fox and Jim Starlin, and then Giacoya and Hunt. Starlin, I think, was doing, I don't know if he was still doing Captain Marvel at the time, because I think a lot of these books, they're both, they might be both bi-monthly, but it would equal like a monthly book because, you know, a March issue of Doctor Strange, and then you won't see another one until May, but in the meantime, you'll have an issue in April of another book that a person's working on. So it really was a lot of, you know, shuffling cards. Now, here we go. Here's when things really start kicking into high gear. Although Steve Englehart and Frank Bruner themselves are the new team. Unfortunately, Ernie Chua, a.k.a. Ernie Chan, is inking, and it's just really working at cross purposes here. But maybe they wanted to hedge their bets because Ernie Chan he was well established and Bruner wasn't. I don't know. That's my guess. So like I said, we're still kind of climbing along, but here we go, baby. Okay, Steve Englehart, Frank Bruner, inks by the Singing Sons of Krusty Bunkers. Now that was the name of Neil Adams' studio. That was the pet name they would give if a bunch of inkers were coming on board to save a deadline. This is like Dick Giordano, Neil, of course, and a young Klaus Janson and some others. Did I say Dick Giordano already? And then later on, Jose Marzan, excuse me. I can't think of his name. Joe Rubenstein. So that's just really, really, look at that. Now we're getting it. Now the feel of the book is really building. It's like they finally have the right team. And Bruner and Englehart would get together like once a month and they would plot out the next issue. And they would do it kind of loosely. But, they were always a phone call away from each other. But they loved plotting, in between issues, just hanging out. That's back when you kind of had a little more free reign. Here we go. Another Bronze Age. It wouldn't be the Bronze Age without a fill-in issue. It has a framing sequence by, let me see, what does this say? Oh, Steve Englehart and Frank Bruner, and I'm guessing he inked himself on this, but wow. So, yes, Steve did go and Stan Lee there, but that's because these are the 3 pages that bookend it. There we go. Oh, this is just magnificent. And Bruner's just really, really into it, growing into his own. Steve Englehart and Mike Friedrich are working together. You do what you can, help each other. And Krusty Bunkers are inking. That pose is just so spectacular. That's just so great. And it just gets more. You can only have so much shoddy art and writing to. With Doctor Strange, I mean, whether it's a superhero comic, but if it's something that's not as commercial as like a Spider-Man or the Thing or the Hulk, you have to really get the artists that don't draw like Kirby. And I love Kirby, but he's, his thing is kick-ass characters and monsters and gods and stuff like that. But with magicians, I don't know if he ever really committed to that sort of thing because his interests lie in like the regular guy kicking ass. Steve Englehart, Frank Bruner Co-creators artist. Krusty Bunkers on the inks. Got another face uplit. There's a lot of that in this. And yeah, they're going to town now. They're really, and the writing is just really, that's a little much, but it's still a great read. And here we go. So much. Look how tight that is. It's like some of them I could see maybe Klaus Janson putting his hands on. How about that? And just all kinds of stuff going on. And there we go. Happy New Year, 1974. That's how the book. That's how the cover originally was, and that's the way. See, the design elements just work great. Your eye goes to here, to here, to here. And, all right, what a way to start. Dick Giordano solo on the inks. And what's fascinating to me is Dick Giordano he's a DC guy. I mean, he was an editor. He was an incredible inker. He was an incredible penciler. He did some great, he's done great Batman stories. He did great Aquaman stories. So it's interesting that I guess through Neil Adams, I think Frank Bruner visited Neil a few times and got some pointers. I could be wrong, but it's all this great stew that makes for a good book. All these elements. I might be screwing up my metaphors, but you know what I'm saying. This is the Silver Dagger. And we go to issue 2. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. They have to stick the Defenders in there to give it that superhero push, even though it's barely a, like they show up for like one page. Now that ectoplasmic form of his. And here's the Silver Surfer showing up. Oh, I was wrong. He is there. So he's kind of looking at the John Buscema issues just to get the feel for the postures and stuff. And here's two. It's just like a. This is Klaus Janson to me, but it's just one of those crazy. What do they call? There's a crazy quilt of non-realistic. I ain't saying it right. I think you know what I'm saying. I don't want to screw up my metaphors even more. So I love that. And this, I really feel, is laid out by Jim Starlin. There's a couple of Starlinisms that I find in here. And, these guys would hang out. Because Englehart was working with Jim Starlin on Master of Kung Fu, the first couple issues. So there had to be some bleed over. And there's a Dread Dormammu, issue 3. But, issue 3 is a fill-in issue, for God's sake. It's a reprint. A reprint with 2 pages. So, I mean, that kind of kills sales and enthusiasm. But sometimes there was a lot of the Bronze Age, this era, the mid-70s, there was a lot of kind of like a long-distance runner or hands off a baton to someone else. One of those, you know what I'm saying, relays. Really read that page there is just in no words. Englehart was smart enough to not to let the art do the storytelling. Man. So you're getting some really amazing stuff. You really are. And Silver Dagger. This has been reprinted in 1983. Marvel started doing those Baxter paper double-sized reprint series. And let me see, there's something more though. Where's the other one? I got another book. Hang on. See, this crosses over into the issues from here. This only goes up to issue 5. Okay, and this goes from to 9. All right. You're sneaky that way. Well, after defeating the Silver Dagger, Frank Bruner's out of here, and a 4-part story that had it would have been 5, except for the fill-in issue that was a reprint. Gene Colan jumps on board. Frank Bruner moves on to Howard the Duck. He had done some Howard the Duck initial stories with Steve Gerber in Giant Size Man Thing, and then graduated to his own title. And Bruner did like the first 2 issues, and I don't know what went on. I mean, I know his relationship with Marvel was strained at the time, and there was also this desire of trying to do stuff that would exceed the monthly grind. Like, miniseries were not a thing back then. You know, there were monthly books, there were one-shots that were like in Marvel Premiere and all that, but they didn't have a miniseries. Like, you know, if the miniseries format of comics were available back then, that they could have waited till all the, half the stories end before they would publish it as a miniseries. So it was a real tough. It was a tough time, for all these new kids that are just kind of feeling their way, and the editors are not much older than them, so there's not a lot of guidance. But yeah, I mean, this is really odd. Gene Colan and John Romita. That is so bizarre. Such opposite styles. Because Romita's into like the sharp images, the hard graphics, whereas Gene Colan likes to do swirly, wispy stuff. So, and then by the end, what happens is Steve Englehart leaves before he gets to finish his story because Jerry Conway took all his books away from him. There was a claim that Englehart was late on his books. Jerry Conway for 3 months was the editor-in-chief, so he took over Defenders from Steve Gerber. He took over all the Englehart titles, Doctor Strange, Captain Marvel, and Avengers. So it really put a monkey wrench into everything. And then for a while, this book starts a slump again. It kind of, you'll have some great artwork. You'll have Tom Sutton, you'll have some P. Craig Russell, some other stuff, but the stories are kind of dry. They're not like stuff. I mean, you can admire the artwork, but it's just kind of stodgy, and the book went back to bi-monthly status after a while, and Chris Claremont wrote it for a while, Marv Wolfman wrote it for a while, and there are some, and Jim Starlin did some of the issues too, but it was just not full. It wasn't all in, it was kind of like, this, we'll just keep this book, and whoever wants to work on it. There's not much direction to it. But until, which I'm going to cover in my next episode of Doctor Strange, is the revival in the late 70s / early 80s by a guy named Roger Stern, who, along with Marshall Rogers, Mike Golden, Paul Smith, Kevin Nolan, Dan Green, and Carl Potts, really bring the best of Doctor Strange in a long time since this era. Like a good 6-year gap between this little bit of greatness and the next era of greatness. And I hope you enjoyed this. I know I've kind of been scattershot. I'm not doing as many re-recordings as I used to, because in my early episodes I cough a lot, and I find out now that my voice gets hoarse after a while. So, so if I sound like I'm just jibber-jabbering, I'm just trying to avoid to have to re-record this and, cough and gag and stuff. Spare you that noise. So hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you next time.